Okay, here we go. All right, welcome to our second Wise Women's Circle with Dr. Ruth Souther, and I'm Tina Green. I'm the founder and transformational coach at Exposing the Roots. And like I said last time on the first circle that we had, this has been a dream of mine for a while, to just really kind of create community with women and uplift women and really feature different women who have some wisdom to share, and so we can really all be connected in that way and be learning from each other. It's just, I want it to be full of love and connection and just bringing women together. So that's what I'm doing with this. And the idea kind of got spurred on with the creation of the life-changing power of self-love. And so really the co-authors in this book are an amazing group of women. And so since that just came out in February, I decided, why don't we feature the authors of this book as our, kind of initial group of wise women, because they really are amazing and have a lot to say. And so last month we had Stephanie Urbina Jones, or last month, 2 weeks ago. And now we have Dr. Ruth Souther, and here comes Lynn. And next month we have Reverend Annie Mark, who is also really fantastic. She's on January 7th. So welcome, Lynn. Sorry you had trouble getting in. And here comes Pam.
Thanks. Happy to be here. It was a stressful 5 minutes.
Hi, Pam. Welcome. So I'm Tina Green. I just did a whole intro, and I'm gonna move on from there, and let's do a little drop in just to kind of get grounded and present. And so if you can get comfortable wherever you're sitting or standing, and kind of put your feet flat on the ground if you can, and take a nice deep breath. And if you feel comfortable, go ahead and close your eyes. I'm going to keep mine open so I can watch the waiting room. And welcome. And let's just take a moment, take another deep breath. And let's become present for this Wise Women's Circle, the second one of the series. And maybe let's try to let go of everything that it took to get here, to set this time aside on your Sunday afternoon or evening, wherever you are. Let's let go of the challenges that Zoom gave us, the weather, whatever's on our to-do list, and just kind of let it all fade away so we can have an hour of connection, an hour of wisdom, an hour with 8 wise women that are here so far, and listening to Ruthie and all her witch fuckery. and I just want to take a moment and take a moment and think about, 3 or 4 things that you're grateful for today. What are you grateful for today that you can just bring into your heart and have that supersede whatever else is going on in your life? 3 or 4 things that you might be grateful for. And take another deep breath. And when you're ready, open your eyes and get ready for some wisdom. So today we have Dr. Ruth Souther, which, is it Souther or Souther?
Souther.
Souther, I'm sorry. Dr. Ruth
Going
Souther.
Souther.
And we all know her as Ruthie. And Welcome, Ruthie. I just want to share, for those of you that don't know her, share a little bit about her. Ruthie's based out of Springfield, Illinois. So she's out up there in the Midwest. And she's a metaphysical and natural arts practitioner. She's an astrologist. She's a shamanic breathwork facilitator, a master Reiki practitioner, a hypnotherapist, ritualist, priestess, and minister. And she holds a master's in shamanic intuitional practices and a doctorate of shamanic psycho-spiritual studies, and is an initiated priestess. And she facilitates her own elemental priestess process, and universal priestess and elemental mystery school, which is a new addition in 2024. She'll talk about that in a little bit. She wrote a chapter in the life-changing power of self-love, which is called Purple Rain: How I Reclaimed My Power. And she just published, she's going to talk about this too, she just published, self-published another anthology just within the last couple of days. And she's published a couple things recently, so I'll let you talk about that, Ruthie. And she's a facilitating member of the Edge of Perception. And it's she creates a safe space to offer rituals and ceremony, and there's a writing circle and everything. So Ruthie's just got a lot going on. She's got a lot going on. She knows a lot. She's done a lot. She's got a lot in her toolbox, and she's really fun to be with. Ruthie and I, when did we first met writing a book together, right?
Right.
In Teotihuacan, Mexico. And we were both writing in a book called Shaman Heart: Turning Pain into Passion and Purpose. And we were there for a week with a group of authors. And I met Ruthie and I just connected with her immediately. And she just made me laugh, and she made me really comfortable, and I got her just like that. And we've been really good friends ever since. And now we've done quite a bit together.
Yeah.
So that was fun. And that was the first time I learned the term witch fuckery, because that's that's what Ruthie talks about a lot. And it's really fun. So do you want to, I'm sorry, I didn't have the full names of your recently published items. You can just mention those real fast.
Oh, sure. And I do want to mention this, that they're not self-published. We're
Okay.
an independent publisher,
Okay.
an indie publisher, and we totally support the author in many ways. And so Pam is on the board of directors and does many of the covers. And so, I mean, it's something we operate out of Amazon, but on the other hand, and the best part is that everybody owns their own work. And that's why I created this along with Terry Woodliff, who isn't on here right now, because I wanted to be able to hold on to my own work. I didn't want to give it away or sell it. And it is good enough to be sold, but I'm one of those kind of people that, nope, I want control, all of it. So
Awesome.
And so it's the Heart of Tarot, and that is a tarot book that I just revamped and re-released with a lot of new stuff in it. And then Mystic Memoirs: Experiences Beyond Belief. That is the collective. That's an anthology book. And Bev is in it, and it is just really awesome. And it's the third anthology that I myself have worked on. We did Chaos of COVID. Lynn, were you in that one? I don't remember if you wrote in that. You did write in that one, yes. And Pam wrote in that one, right? You wrote in that one. And Bev wrote in that one. And so it was all the stories about COVID and how horribly hard it was on everybody, or funny. Some of them were funny, so yeah, writing is my passion along with everything else.
Awesome. Well, I am so happy to just give you the floor, Ruthie, and allow you to share your wisdom and talk about whatever you're going to talk about for the next 20 minutes or so.
Okay. So Tina, thank you for having me on here. I have loved every minute of being part of this book. And I have stickers that says bestseller that I'm putting on all these books before they go out on my bookshelf in my office in Springfield. So I live in Taylorville, Illinois, on a little lake, and I'm thrilled to be near that water because water really speaks to me, but so does earth. All the elements really do. And so I wanted to talk first about the priestess piece because it is being in service. And this book, The Life-Changing Power of Self-Love, it is all about being in service to yourself. If you cannot find the strength or the healing or to be able to step into ownership of all the things that have happened to you in your life, then I feel you cannot ever move forward. And so the priestess path is all about that. And you'd think I'd have a book laying here, wouldn't you? Oh, wait, I do. This is that book here. Although Pam has redone the cover, this is an old one. And so a lot of changes going on with the covers. And that's what I love about Amazon is you can just change everything at will. It's really fun when you own it. Anyway, the whole idea is that you unwind yourself. And we start with earth. Now, if anybody here is of earth-based spirituality, you will understand what I'm talking about, unwinding. Because when you call a circle, you go clockwise, and you create the safe space for everybody to be in the container. But in the priestess path, we unwind. So we go backwards. And we do start with earth, our container. We move to water, our desire. Then we move to fire, which is our inspiration, our intuition, I should say. And then we move to air, and that's our inspiration. And then that's our voice. So we have all the elements that make a human being a human being. And the spirit piece is wrapped around all of it. In the book, there are 10 challenges per each one of those segments. So I've been teaching it for 10 years. And interestingly enough, Bev is one of the first ones that was ever in it before it was ever called the Priestess Path. So she's an old school with me. And so it's just a process that really opens the door. If I can look at my body and my existence, where I live, how I live, and I can really take a hard look at the patterns, tracing the patterns backwards of who I am and why I am, and what are the things in my life that I keep repeating over and over and over. That's basically the earth segment. And then when we recognize that, then we go into the wounds, the sacred wounds. We go into why do I do that? I now know what it is I do. Why do I keep doing it? And so then we go through all of the medicine of what is the sacred wound. And you probably all have heard of sacred wounding, but if you haven't, a sacred wound is something that rules your life. It is something that you always go back to because it's comfortable. It's always something that repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats, like banging your head on the wall, and you keep going back and you keep thinking it's going to be different, and it never ever is. And Tina mentioned I'm an astrologer, so all of this stuff plays deeply into all of the programs I do. In astrology, it's Chiron, the wounded warrior, the wounded healer. And so where that is in your chart can give you a clue to your sacred wound if you don't actually know. But every time I do readings, and I've done hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of readings now, and I point that out and people are like, oh my God, there it is. Then on a solar return, and I know I'm jumping all over the place. I'll get back to my main point here in a minute. The solar return is when the sun comes back to your exact moment of birth. And then wherever Chiron is becomes your medicine. So from that point, you go, oh, here's my wound. Oh my God, I feel it. Here's the medicine that you need to work it through. And so then you become your own healer. And so Chiron is in this book. Each segment has a piece of astrology in it, because I believe deeply that that's the roadmap to who we are, the blueprint that we chose when we came down here. And so I've chosen asteroids because the asteroids, are very, very powerful. And people don't realize just how powerful they are because everybody's caught up on the planets. So all of that's in this priestess book, and those are part of the challenges that we go through. So the universal priestess, which was mentioned in my bio, is the next iteration of it. And Lynn's been in it, Bev's been in it. It is a step up. Like we did lunar, solar, star, and comet. I love comet. And we visited the Akashic records with comet. I just have so much fun creating these things, and I can't even say exactly where they come from. The downloads, just like I'll be sitting there and all of a sudden be like, oh, that's a good idea. All right, write that down, make a voice note, whatever. So having said all of that, these ideas just keep coming and coming and coming. So Universal was online, all online. I did a few in person, but they're mostly meditation. This book is physical. There's a lot of physical stuff that you do. For instance, there's 4 power questions that you're supposed to ask 5 people and honestly hear their feedback. And that is a hard thing. That's in water. So there are challenges that are hard. Cutting cords to the past, reclaiming your future, all kinds of really interesting and fun things. I like to burn things. I love fire. Let's burn some shit. That's my motto. Let's burn some shit. Okay. Everybody's been in my class like, yes, the burn pit's here. Let's do it. So all of this wisdom, not all of it, but a lot of it's in this book, and I'm working on the Universal Priestess book. So I'm hoping that eventually that'll be something I can actually have out online. And I still teach that occasionally. I have passed the torch for the physical elemental priestess because I'm now working on a new one, which is going to be in Nashville in March. I can look at my calendar and see what that date is here in a minute. But it is the mystery school, the Priestess Mystery School. So it'll have all these elements in it and more. I love mythology. Mythology, the archetypes, tarot archetypes at the tarot book that I do tarot readings, and I've done them for 30 some years too. It's the archetypical energy that's so big, and all the mythology and all the stories across all of the different cultures and religions are so rich with lessons and wisdom that I love stepping into them and creating ritual around them. So in Nashville, we'll be doing a lot of ritual. And if you don't do any kind of ritual now, you'll fall madly in love with it. It's a reclaiming tradition. And I don't know if anybody knows what that is, but Starhawk, Starhawk, not Star Wolf, Starhawk. Anyway, and I learned from her. I taught with her for many years. And so it is a tradition that invites inclusivity. It's not limited to women. Men are involved. Men have been in my priestess path. Some of them have questioned, why do you call it priestess? Because priest has a not so good, people don't look at priest and go, oh yeah, that looks like fun. It's got a kind of a difficult meaning to it. So I am totally inclusive in all the things I do. So Nashville will be on steroids. It'll be the priestess path on steroids. And we will go from there into a 9-month mystery school. There'll be another retreat in November, and then Teotihuacan in February. Woo, 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 where we will take the mysteries and magic and archetypes from the Mexican culture and really create a huge story for us, doing ritual and magic with that.
Hey Ruth, can you talk? You kind of started out talking about how serving the priestess path is really being in service, and how self-love is really being in service to yourself. Can you
Yes.
talk about that a little bit more? Can you follow
Yes.
thread a little bit more?
Thank you for bringing me back to focus.
Yeah.
I can be all over the place. You can tell by my bio, I love everything. So when we love ourselves, when we take the time to truly understand who we are as women, especially, when we really look into what that self-love is about, all the stories in that book are from the heart, the moments in our lives when we realized that we were being lost, that we were lost. And so what does that have to do with being in service as a priestess? It's just like being on an airplane. If you don't hook your seatbelt and put your air mask on, your oxygen mask on, you cannot help anyone else. And that's exactly what it is. you have to love yourself. You have to be willing to dig deep. The women in this book, oh my God, the deep, the depth, digging down in there. And it isn't just women. Jeremy's in there too, right? There's some men in there, right?
It's actually, it's just women who wrote in the book, but there are men who are mentioned. Jeremy's mentioned, Jeremy Pager's mentioned quite a few times, actually.
Okay, so yeah, it's all women in there.
Mhm.
And so women especially have a lot of trouble understanding that to take care of ourselves, to step into our own truth, to step into our own empowered self. I won't, the word power is great, except then we can start thinking in the terms of ego, and there's big E ego, which is your arrogance. And I always say, are you that arrogant that you cannot even say that your compassion could be directed at yourself? Oh, I can give it to everybody else. That's arrogance, and that's big E, right? That is not self-serving. To have confidence, little e, ego, is self-confidence. It is the understanding that we as women especially have to take it apart like a motor, like just take it all apart and look at it and go, oh my God, this doesn't belong in here anymore. This doesn't belong in here anymore. And when we clean it up and put it back together, we start to develop those confidence, that sense of self, and our future. I don't know how many people have said after they've gone through all of this or read the book that they recognize themselves in those stories. They recognize that they were not living up to their own truth, their own sense of value. So a priestess is in service to self.
Mhm.
That means taking all the difficult stuff and pulling it out, clearing it out, healing it as best as we can, and then stepping back in and becoming in service to the bigger picture, which is your family, your community, the bigger world. A lot of times we talk about how, oh, we would love so much for the world to be a better place. And I just want all my energy go to that. But if you're a hot mess, you're not going to be offering any positive energy to the world. So
Ruthie, can you share with us maybe a story of how you were able to do this for yourself?
yes, I will briefly share what's in the
Yeah.
book. I mean, there's
Okay.
many, all right, but I'll briefly share that one. I was married to an alcoholic, and I finally couldn't take it anymore, and I was going to kill him, basically. I mean, I had the butcher knife in my hand, and I was going to murder that man or kill myself, one or the other. One was going to die that night. And my children, teenage children, came home in time, and I just wiped the knife off. I've been stabbing it in the ground behind the garage, like trying to get my courage up, crying. I just wiped the dirt off, put it back in the stand, and in that moment, I knew my marriage was over, and we split up just, like barely a month later. I moved to Springfield. I transferred there with my job, didn't know anybody, didn't know anything about, I lived in little old Danville and small towns, and I didn't know how to operate on my own, but I sure as heck learned. And that was one story. Another quick story is my spiritual home in Missouri. For 15 years. I gave everything, blood, sweat, and tears to that place because I believe this is where I learned most of what I know. So I give them deep credit. And that wasn't Starhawk. That was the people that own the place. And I love them and I love the work and I learned everything I learned. And yet by the end of that 15 years, I was nothing to them, nothing more to them than just a warm body who paid. And I had the courage to say, okay, that's enough. I drove out of there. That's in one of the other books, Sacred Rebel, I think. I drove out of there and I never looked back.
And
And
what did that bring up in you? Like those two experiences are really big, like leaving a marriage, being married to an addict, which is really painful, and leaving it, and then also leaving your spiritual home, right? They're big. Like, what did that create in you?
it brought up a lot of grief,
Hmm.
lots and lots of grief. But the worst part was, and I didn't recognize this right away, I blamed myself for everything.
Mhm.
I believed the stories. I began to believe the the uh, the words that were spoken to me about, I'm a bad wife. It wouldn't happen if you hadn't been like this. If you had been a better, supporter of the Grove, if you'd given more money, whatever. I begun to believe all of that. And you can probably tell from just the way I talk, that's not who I am. Completely lost touch with who I am. And so after the grief came a fierce independence. Like, I will never be told what to do again. I will never, ever again give my soul over to a group or to a person who doesn't make the effort to understand me, or that I can, and I've been married for 32 years to an incredible guy who, when we met right off the bat, we were talking about it and I said, this is who I am. And he's like, okay. And so here we are, so yes. And it was not that easy. It went from here to here, but it took about 2 years to get there, to get
Mhm.
from that point,
Mhm.
which then brings me to tarot. Because why is tarot so passionate for me? Because it saved my life. I moved to Springfield. I went into this little metaphysical shop called Earth Magic. I signed up for a tarot class, and those cards, those symbols in those cards saved me. And in the self-care book, in the life-changing power of self-love, the medicine I give you is the Queen of Swords. And that was the card that kept coming up over and over and over and over. And I never got it. I thought she was holding a bloody head. Ooh, that must be my husband. Well, I was going to kill him. Why didn't I? But when I finally understood what it was about, the challenge to unmask myself and see what was underneath. And yes, I will give some examples of sacred wounding. Believing that a sacred wound. Okay, here's my sacred wound. In my astrology chart, Chiron is in the first house. The first house is how I show myself to other people. I was never good enough. I would be an overachiever. I would go out of my way. I would stay up late. I would get up early. I would do anything I could to prove my worth, because that's what I wanted people to see. No, I'm worthy. I'm worthy. I'm worthy. That was my sacred wound. When in fact, yes, I was worthy and I didn't have to do any of that. But that was what I had to do to prove myself to me. And all it did was piss people off. I even got wrote up in a work at work about in my evaluation about how I work too hard and it makes everybody else look bad. Can you imagine that? I am not lying. That actually happened. I'm like, okay, that pissed me off at that point. Okay, so that's my sacred wound. So I ask you to think about, what is a pattern that you repeat? Again, it goes back to your pattern. I constantly wanted to prove myself to people by fixing things, by showing you I'm a good person, by showing you I'm all of these things. So what is your pattern? What do you do? What do you notice in your life that just keeps repeating? That would be your sacred wound. And I will say they change. You're born with a specific kind of sacred wounding in your chart, but they do change. And yet that element always stays nearby, near the surface. One thing I've learned is that I'm very quick to go, oh, agreeing. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. Another sacred wound. I want you to like me. Please like me. I want you to love me. I want to be your friend. When I think back on how I did that, I was very, what did Pam say? Yes, I was very, what was the other one about sacred wounding? I didn't see that one quick enough.
I just was reiterating what you said, a sacred wound is a pattern you keep repeating in your life. Right.
Right. So that's it. You just keep looking at it. And as you get older and that starts to change, then you start to look at what is changing in my life or in your life that has suddenly become a over and over and over. Do you find yourself always giving in? Do you find yourself being attracted to the same kind of people and then getting hurt and going back and back and back and back going, why won't they like me? But you're not thinking that. You're not thinking, why won't they like me? You're thinking, what can I do? What can I do to make them? What can I do? Examine those words that come out of your mouth too. So I hope that answered the question. Is there anything else around that you want to ask about? No? No? Okay. And if anybody has, well, we'll have a question and answer here in a minute, but so I want to speak into the ritual piece of it. This is another part of self-empowerment. This is another way to heal the sacred wound, is by ritualizing it. And that means honoring it to make it sacred. So when your wound becomes the sacred wound, but you recognize it for what it is, so sacrifice means sacred, making something sacred. Isn't that interesting? So the words are together. So when you figure out what your sacred wound is, or at least one of them, and you make it sacred, and you honor it, and you honor all the lessons it has taught you. Because when I look back, wow, I missed a lot of them at first, but then when I finally started realizing, I am most grateful for that wound. But I made it sacred, and I made it sacred. And I honored that part of myself that made those mistakes or experiences. I don't think there's mistakes. I think they're experiences. Which leads me to one more thing.
Because really your wound becomes your medicine.
It does, right. Your wound becomes your medicine. And that's exactly how you do it. By ritualizing. One way is to ritualize it, to honor it. You got to at least know what it is, and then start digging around. And then you go down into, where did it come from? So one thing you can ask yourself, what was the first memory I had of ever having that thought or that behavior? And that will take you back to the beginning. And it's almost always as a child that you start to see that. And I dislike using the word trauma so much, because I had a great childhood, but that was playing in my life even then. I'm the second oldest child, the first daughter. I did everything for my parents because I'm the overachiever. I mean, they were grateful, but I take a step back and look, and I'm like, why didn't I demand that from my sibs? I don't know. I just didn't. It's easier to do it myself. I'm a Virgo. It's just easier for me to do it myself. So, one other thing I want to bring up before my 20 minutes are over is karma. People talk about karma being you be punished or rewarded. I do not look at karma that way at all. I look at karma as exactly what I was saying, the experience. And karma, there was no goddess karma. I'm very goddess oriented, female oriented, right? And there was no goddess karma. So when we did our universal priestess, we created her. We called her into life. And we started to understand that the experiences we have are not punishment, nor are they a reward. They are simply experience, and they take us forward, and we learn from them, and then we can truly step into the people we're supposed to be in this world. So I love karma. And then that takes us to destiny. Also no goddess, but there is now the destiny goddess. And so when you step into your experience, you find the arc that takes you to your true destiny. And that's why I believe it's power for self-love and service. Be in service to yourself by having self-love and really diving into those wounds, finding your truth, and then healing it, or at least learning how to live with it.
Yeah, that's great. And so when I think of like an idea of a priestess or a priestess process, it's completely, I have a new idea of what that is now, because the word priest was always, having being raised a Catholic, has always been associated with that for me. I'm like, a priestess, or, I don't know. Do you have anything to say about that? Because that's always been, it's a block that I've mostly lifted, but I just imagine that other people might have that association.
That's exactly why I didn't use the word priest or incorporate it anywhere at this point. I've tried to think about how I could do that because I would like more men to be involved, but priestess is an archetype being in service. In tarot, she's the second card, and she's the number 2 card. And so anyway, priestess also has a negative connotation to people. Many people look at that as being a pagan or Wiccan piece, right? And she isn't. I mean, I know there are people, I was Wiccan for years, and now I'm just call myself earth-based because again, they have too many rules and I don't like rules. So there you go. But a priestess is not above anyone else. You know, these groups that are high priestess. Oh, hell no. No, no. Run screaming. I'm sorry if there's anybody in here that's a high priestess. Sorry, that happens. But the truth is, then we are putting ourselves above. And that's what the word priest is. I'm above. I'm the channel. God can't talk to you. God has to talk to me first and then to you. And high priest and high priestess in a pagan-y, Wiccan-y world is the same thing. We are the ones who are in control. And my deepest heartfelt opinion is you are the one in control. You are the priestess. You are the one who steps in and owns your own soul, your own evolution, your own idea of who you are supposed to be. No one else. You are the channel that receives the messages. And that's exactly what I teach.
That's awesome. I love that. Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions for Ruthie?
No questions. What else can I talk about? Oh, I know. I got another subject if you'd like me to add one more thing. Come on, guys, think about it. You can ask me anything, literally. I don't mind. You can ask me anything. I am not wearing a bra. No. I hate bras. I have a t-shirt that says, yes to masks, no to bras, and I wear it sometimes. Anyway, I want to talk about hypnosis because I'm also a hypnotherapist and I also do spiritual counseling. Okay, hypnotherapy is an incredible tool, an absolute incredible tool. And I thread all these other things. I use Reiki, I use energy, body work, all this, if they're willing to, when I do hypnosis. So I do, I don't know what you call it. It's not new age hypnosis, but it is not, it's not clinical. That's what I want to say. It's not a clinical hypnosis, although I was trained, I went to school for that, but it's not the way I do it. And I love hypnosis. It is a way, again, to access those parts of yourself that you can't get to. You know, people come in and go, why can't I remember when I was from 7BO? Why can't I get on an airplane? Why can't I find discover what I want going? I mean, many other. And I also specialize in PTSD and anxiety. And there's lots and lots and lots of techniques with self-hypnosis that can work you through your anxiety. So I love doing that too. So that was just another little thing I wanted to throw in there.
Cool. We'll have to talk about that. I'd like to, what are some of the things that so anxiety and, what else did you say?
PTSD.
PTSD, right.
Right.
Like, how do you see, there's a lot of people that have anxiety these days. Like, how does hypnosis help with that?
It is going back, not with PTSD. I want to be very clear. That's a totally different bird, okay? Although you may find that your anxiety is PTSD, but unless you actually can point to a trauma when you come in and go, I was in a car accident or something like that, because PTSD is not limited to war. A lot of kids run across this too. Anxiety, we go back to when is again the first time you felt it? When did you first feel anxious? How old were you? And I do this in talking, but I also do it through hypnosis. You know, I'll walk them back through. Hypnosis is basically confusing the conscious mind so it goes away. You know, give it something to do, have it go over there and plan a trip, whatever, I don't care. I want to talk to your unconscious because that's where everything is stored. And so when we talk about anxiety, it's like I'll get people down the best that they'll let me, especially in the first 2 sessions, down into the most relaxed state they'll go, and then we'll go backwards. When's the first time you remember this? Well, I was 14. Well, can you go further back? Well, I was 10. Can you go any further back? And when we finally find what they believe to be the actual point of reference, then we can start working on it. A child doesn't have to have had anything actually happen to them. They could have seen a movie. They could have witnessed somebody else have something happening to them. They could have had some weird nightmare, and it becomes very real to a child. And so then we start with that. Oh, okay. That's when you first felt it. Tell me what it is. Now, a lot of hypnosis I do, there's what we call conversational, where we talk back and forth. And I use that with some people, but a lot of times they just go in and then they come out of it and then they talk to me about it. Unless they really, I find a lot of people find talking draws them out of their place. PTSD, I think a lot of times clinical wants to take them back into the actual moment, and I never do that because PTSD, reliving that trauma can throw them into a psychotic or a terrible place. So we don't go back into it. What we do is we reconstruct it without that trauma. So if that didn't happen, or let's say someone was raped, we're not going to go back into how the rape happened or anything, but what we're going to do is, what would you do now? What would you say? What would you tell that younger self? What would you recognize? And so there's a whole host of questions and things I put to the person to rebuild it. It literally rebuilds the nerve center so that when they're done after enough sessions, they have created a new ending. Maybe they weren't even raped by the time we're done. It's pretty interesting. And there's actually a real word for what I'm saying, but I can't think what it is right now.
Right.
Yeah. I do past life regression.
Synapse.
Did
You're burning
someone have,
the synapse.
Yes. Yeah. Synapse. Yeah. We're recreating, we're reconnecting so that they're bypassing it. It's just like a heart. When an artery gets clogged, it builds a new artery around it, a go around. And that's what we do with PTSD and a lot of trauma. And sometimes anxiety. We go around it just like a heart would build a new artery, a new roadway. So it's pretty cool. Past life, I do a lot of past life. And so in that instance where I'm taking you back to to the first time you remember, that is a regression. But I also do past life regressions, and that's really fun. And I always say this: don't try to conjure up how you died. Look at how you lived, and that may involve your death, but it may not. And the majority of people find in those past life regressions that they see all kinds of wisdom and things about themselves that they never knew, because they're not just looking for the tragedy, they're looking for the life. So that's one of the things I like to do with past life.
awesome. Well, Ruthie, that was a lot of wisdom. Thank you so much. And you mentioned that you have the priestess, the elemental priestess retreat coming up in March. And
Right.
that whole process, is there any in the books that you had recently come out? Is there anything else that you want to mention? And I think Natalie put the links in the chat if anybody is interested in any of those.
Yes, actually, March, we're going to be really concentrating on some mythology around and doing ritual and magic. And oh, here's a cool thing. Some of you already know this. Magic is changing your consciousness at will. When I want it, I change it. And that is not news. That's all over the place. You talk about positive thinking, but that's what magic is. But we do it through ritual. We do it through, I don't know that we'll do any spell work. Oh, I did want to say this. In the 10 years I've been doing Priestess Path, I have had people from almost every walk of religion you can think of. They're not asked to change anything about themselves other than the pieces they want to. I have had men and women. I have had just all manner of people who need support to shift the way that they are in their lives. And so I'm very proud of that fact, that it's not about religion. It's not about who you are as a body part. It's not about any of that. It's about the archetype. So anyway, we're gonna have a myth that we're gonna work with, and what that means is we'll be doing ritual around it. We'll be doing some challenges. We'll do experiential. I love experiential stuff. I have a lot of really cool experiences that we'll be working with, and we'll probably be incorporating like the earth water dynamic in that, but I'm not actually sure if that's the way it's going to go. I mean, I'm still planning it. So it's going to be really, really awesome. And for the cheap price, I think of $500. And that is Thursday. You get there Thursday afternoon. So Thursday night, we kick it right off. Friday all day, Saturday all day, Sunday all day. I think if you want to, we're going to be doing it at Stephanie's home, Stephanie Urbina Jones. If you want to stay at her house, I think there's a nominal fee to stay in one of her houses or her rooms, but you can also stay somewhere else. Meals, I'm not sure how we're doing that yet.
Awesome.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that sounds great.
And it is March.
And I know Stephanie's house is right on the Cumberland River, so it's a really beautiful thing too.
So it's Thursday, March 7th and 8, 9, and 10.
Okay.
And we will be doing all day. I had to giggle a little bit because Stephanie's like, well, when we have time to, no, there's no time, man. We are going to be on it every minute. She goes, well, after dinner, no, after dinner, we're doing more stuff because I only have 3.5 days with these people. And I really want to cram as much in there as I can.
Okay.
I do want to mention, so the Edge of Perception is a rituals group, but also we are a writing group. We have Monday night at the Edge, Writing with the Edge. If you're interested, you can go to the website edgeofperception.org and join that way. It's private, so it's not out there for everyone to just drop in, because we write, we do experiential writing, we share, we critique, we teach all the different little skills. Everybody in our book has been through that, except one person has been through that whole program with us. We have a new book coming up, Mystic Memoirs Volume 2. So if you got a story, we also have Portals coming up, which is a fiction book. Terry and I both write fiction, and and Michelle, we really want a fiction book. So if you have a fiction pieces will be between 3,000 and 5,000 words. It's very cheap to get involved in this. We work really cheap. We're cheap people. Most of us believe everybody's got a story in them, and we really want to put it out there. Our books are done through Crystal Heart Imprints, which is an independent publisher, which means you own your work, but we handle everything else. And our authors love it. If you look at crystalheartimprints.com, you'll see all the books that we've got out. We're very eclectic, have very many different styles and types of books. So it has to go through a board. If you want to submit something, there's 6 board members, 3 of us have to approve it. We will read through it. We'll give you back some feedback. And if we don't think it's right up to snuff, and give you another chance to submit it. So we are all about supporting people through priestess, through writing, through life, through self-love.
Yeah. Well, Ruthie, I'm so happy to have you in my life and have introduced you to all these other women. I have one thing I want to mention to everybody that I have coming up. You heard us mention Jeremy Pager, and he is my teacher and dear friend, and he will be he and I will be teaching a 4-week online series. It's 2 hours on a Wednesday night, an online Toltec journey of transformation. And it's based on the 4 agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And we're really going to do a deep dive into each one of the agreements, which is just, it's a really foundational piece of work. And I don't know, the 4 agreements, I've known so many people that have read that book and it's really impacted their lives. So it's just kind of a revisiting for a lot of people. But, and re-looking at now where you're at now, how do these agreements look in your life? So I'm really excited about that. I'm excited to be teaching with Jeremy because he's a master. And so that starts on January 10th, and it's on Wednesday nights, 7 to 9 Central.
It is every Wednesday night for a certain
Every Wednesday night for 4 weeks,
4
on
weeks.
January 10th through the 31st.
Okay. Thank you.
And yeah, and thank you all for coming. I'm going to hand it back over to Ruthie so she can take us out. Oh, wait, actually, before I do that, next one of these we have, I'm really excited about it. The next one will be on January 7th. And that is with Reverend Annie Mark. Annie's a writer, an interfaith and shamanic minister, and she does all kinds of things like officiates weddings. She's a ceremonialist. She's a spiritual counselor. She's a musician. She also facilitates shamanic breath work, and she's a songwriter. She plays the harp, and she actually created a ministerial training program. So she trains ministers, and she's really an incredible person, like gets right into your heart. And I love her deeply, and I want you all to meet her.
Annie is amazing. She really
is amazing. And so I'm really excited that she's going to do our first one of the new year to help us bring in the new year in this circle. So she's going to be our next person. I wanted to mention that before we let Ruthie take us out. Dr. Ruth.
Thank you again, Tina. I appreciate being on here, and you all are wonderful, and I love you, Tina. I just can't wait to do more work with you. So
Yay.
thank you.
Okay.
So what I decided to take us out is I drew a tarot card, and so I drew the Empress. And so I'm just going to give you this energy to take away. Okay, the Empress is the earth. And so as you ground yourself on this earth and you feel your feet as you walk, you feel the energy as it comes up into your body, you know that this earth changes cycles, as do you. So when you take time to understand that the cycles live within our body just as they live within this earth, she is all about love. She is all about self-love. She is holding the lotus at her heart, which is the open heart. She is looking, for me, she's looking to the left. So she honors the past. So honor your past. Understand that the past creates the future. And as you walk these patterns that are in your life, honor who you are. Just as you honor the earth, honor yourself, and know that you have always got the power to shield yourself, the beauty to hold, and the beauty to reach out to other people and to understand that you are unique in all of who you are. So be the Empress in your life. Be the one who holds the space in you and outside you.
Thank you, Ruthie.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everybody. Hopefully we'll see you on January 7th.
Thank you, Tina. Appreciate it
Nice
so
to
much.
meet y'all. I'm going to stop recording. There we go.